I have a background in nurse education, which has a story to it itself. I got into education because I had some bad experiences and recognized how important training and education was for nurses. So I worked my way up through the organization in the education department. And I got to a point where I started to realize that I was being asked to educate and re-educate every time we had a survey, come back in and re-educate. And I was getting exhausted and burned out, and I wasn't having the impact that I'd hoped for. And long story short, I transitioned into being a coach in my organization. And I had so many aha moments. When I started coaching, I started to realize that people are usually with the best intention. They're not deliberately not following policy and procedure. They're not purposefully doing things wrong. There are just so many competing priorities that in a moment, somebody's going to make the best decision that they can. And often that best decision is not what would be deemed the right decision according to policy and procedure. There's time pressures and corners get cut and people think they found these great workarounds. And so coaching really helped me to understand that. And it opened up a whole new opportunity. And so as I was coaching the clinic managers, I started to see how important their role was within the organization. It's like they are the cog in the wheel for everything. They're there for the patients, they're there for the staff, the doctors, the multidisciplinary team, the leadership of the organization. Everybody is focusing on the nurse leader. And what I realized was these nurse leaders, a lot of them didn't even know what a leader was when they took the role, because they got promoted, because they were excellent at patient care. And it's kind of heartbreaking to watch them work so hard. I don't know another profession that works so hard and puts so many hours in, but the work they're doing is often the work of other people. They're redoing the work that somebody else did because they didn't feel that it was done correctly, or they're doing it and allowing other people to go home. Like, nurses are compassionate people. That's one of the reasons why we end up in nursing. So they take that compassion, and it's almost like a muscle that's overused. And so they are making sure everybody else is okay. And at the end of the day, they're exhausted. But as it grows, I'm hoping to bring in other coaches so that we can spread the program across multiple organizations. This is way too much work for one individual to do. So I'm the seed that's been planted, and I'm hoping that I'll bring other nurse coaches into the organization and we'll be able to spread this, because you get a great nurse manager and so many other things start to improve because you have a nurse manager who understands that their role, they have to develop and grow a team that they trust to take care of their patients. They have an organization that's dependent upon them delivering like clinical outcomes and financial outcomes. It's not just about the clinical. And that's something I think that as nurses, it's kind of like, yeah, you worry about that. You give me what I need and I'll take care of my patients. In today's world, it's not going to be that way. There's always going to be a budget. And so a nurse manager has to be able to utilize her resources that way. So I'm just hoping that that I'm going to be able to grow this and affect more organizations.
First started as a manager, I'm exactly who you described. I was selected because I was a strong clinical leader. And then it's like, ta-da. Yeah. Figure it out, and I had to request to go to an Excel class, but it wasn't about learning Excel. It was, how do I impact the things that are going on the spreadsheet? Like, that's what's actually important. And I think, everything as you were talking, Kimball's just like, yes. How badly is this needed, Kimball?
Oh my goodness. I would have paid probably anything that you told me for this program when I first got going. Just because I had no clue. Like, you're right. I was a strong clinical leader, so that's why I was chosen. Plus, you go to school, you get a master's degree in leadership. They do teach you some things, but they don't really teach you how to be a manager.
Right. Well, it can be a very lonely position, right? Because we feel when we're in that position that we are put out there as the expert, and there becomes this fear of asking and letting everybody else know that we're struggling. And coaching is a really privileged role, because had I not gotten into coaching, I would not have understood. But people need to share what's on their minds, and that's how I learned so much, because you put somebody in a safe environment, they don't want to share with their supervisor the things they share with me. In fact, a lot of the time they were talking about their supervisor, not necessarily in a bad way.
Right.
But sometimes you don't want the supervisor to know that you're asking questions that are routinely like considered dumb, because you should know them, but you don't know them, and you're afraid to ask anybody. And if you don't ask anybody, then it all just falls to pieces. And you know, that's and the interesting thing is that I never went into management because there was no structure. And recently our university hospital came to the College of Nursing and said, hey, do you have some kind of nurse manager program? And we're like, you have 250 nurse managers and you have no program? I'm like, this is like just absurd.
There's so much conflict between you know, budgets and not having the resources, and then being a team player, but yet being a leader. You know, so you have to be the disciplinary person, but then you also need to be relatable, so that you can deal with the staff in a certain way. You know, so there's so many dynamics to it all. And honestly, a coach would have really been a lifesaver for me. It would have.
Yeah, and in the back of a lot of nurses' minds, of course, is, and this is, I think, what organizations forget, is they're accountable to the board of nursing too. So it's not always a matter of just saying yes to whatever is asked of you, because if a nurse feels that that's putting a license in jeopardy, or his license in jeopardy, now that brings on a whole other new gamut. So
And you know, Kimball, you were talking about like the social dynamics. Holy cow! Like
that's a whole nother.
I mean, there's like, it is really becoming a master juggler of. But you know, I think like Sarah talked about, like this boundaries and addressing how do you handle and manage, and you know, that everyday drama, like all of that. You have, it's an art of learning how to balance all those things. Get done what you need done in the right way. Keep, you know, hit your KPIs, hit your budget, and like, you know, do the right things that will, you know, have really great patient outcomes, customer service, you know, all the things.
Yes, you got to think about. You got to think about productivity, and then don't be a clinical manager where you have to actually work in staffing some days. Oh my goodness! I mean. So I think it's a fantastic program. I do. I think it's fantastic and very, very much so needed.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you.
And
I'm excited about it.
I like your vision of expansion as well. Of you know starting out, and then you know getting a team, assembling a team to help you essentially disseminate the program so you can be more impactful, because it's needed everywhere. Whew.
Absolutely.